Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us on this week's WilmingtonBiz Talk. I'm Vicki Janowski, editor of the Greater Wilmington Business Journal. And this week we are talking about the 1-year mark of Novant Health purchasing NHRMC. So joining us to give us an update on what's happened in the past year, but also what to expect going forward now is Shelburne Stevens, who is president of Novant Health's coastal region, but also now head of Novant Health New Hanover Regional Medical Center. And joining Shelburne is Lori Whalen, who is president and COO of Novant Health Brunswick Medical Center. So we're going to jump into the discussion with the two of them in just a moment. But first, we're going to hear a word from our sponsors, Cape Fear Realtors.
Hello, I'm Ann Gardner, CEO of Cape Fear Realtors. Realtors support this program's efforts to connect our community in meaningful dialogue with actionable insights. Realtors are dedicated professionals who build strong, resilient communities and businesses. Work with someone you can trust. Work with a realtor. Learn more at capefear.realtor.
Hi, everyone. Today we're talking about the Novant NHRMC deal 1 year later. February 1st, 2021 was when the deal officially closed, in which Winston-Salem-based Novant Health purchased then county-owned New Hanover Regional Medical Center. And it was a fairly significant deal, both for our region and also across the state, in a nearly or more than $5 billion deal when you count up the commitments for capital projects in the next decade, and also just the cash payment that went to the county, which has now, of course, been mostly invested in the community endowment that is being formed as well. So with such a large transaction and such a large impact on not only our area's employment field, but also patient services as well, we wanted to take a moment at 1 year in and see what's changed after the sale, and then also what's coming up ahead. So joining us today, we have Shelburne Stevens, who's now head of what we used to think of as NHRMC, which is going to be our first question of what they're calling themselves these days. And then also Lori Whalen, who is at Novant Health's Brunswick Medical Center, and both have roles in what is the newly formed coastal market that Novant created after the sale. So yeah, let's start off with that. Shelburne and Lori, tell us what is now the current name. I know the signs went up this week as well to mark the 1 year anniversary, but what should we refer to the hospital system that now represents New Hanover and Brunswick County and Pender County, I should say?
Yeah, it's Novant Health New Hanover Regional Medical Center. Brunswick kept its name as Novant Health Brunswick Medical Center, and then Pender is Novant Health Pender Memorial Hospital. So we just put Novant Health in everything, and as you said, we've been changing out our signage. So lots of aubergine or purple signs going up, renaming our buildings, and that'll happen over the next couple of months. You'll see that on our vehicles and such too.
And the rebranding it's been a full year. I know we did a story earlier kind of comparing that to, the rebranding of PPD after the sale closed with Thermo Fisher happened pretty quickly and re-identify themselves. Is there a reason why you guys have kind of slowly rolled out the new identity and names over the past year?
Really, it just takes a lot of work and getting everybody comfortable with names, and some of the clinic names would change, and just gaining alignment around the naming, and then ordering signage. So it all just takes a little time to do. And then we really want to spend most of our time just putting together our cultures and getting our teams to know each other and working together. And we do have to call out, we did all this in a pandemic with several waves of COVID. And so that was no easy challenge as well. And but really working together as a new coastal market, and using all of our resources that is Novant Health now.
Yeah, I'll add, Vicki. I think, I was with New Hanover Regional Medical Center for 11 years prior to the transition. And I think Novant's promise during the partnership exploration was really to approach this as a partnership. And so I think that's why you didn't see everything on day one, really trying to take this integration slowly to make sure we get the best of both worlds. And so part of that transition was sort of honoring that process.
So as many people know, prior to this acquisition, I mean, Novant has had a presence in Brunswick County for many, many years, both through the hospital facility there, but also physicians and physician groups. So just still looking broadly before we get into the specifics of the agreement and the deals, how it's played out. Can you give us a sense of how large now is the coastal market footprint? When you say Novant Health in our region, looking at everything, where does it extend to? Is it the 3-county region? Is it going to extend further? But how large of an entity are we looking at now? NHRMC on its own had always been the area's largest employer, biggest healthcare provider. So what is it currently?
So again, we're still the largest employer. If you look at inpatient beds now and adding all the hospitals, we're close to 1,000 inpatient beds in the 3-county region, but we still serve what we call a 7-county area for referrals for the tertiary level of care at New Hanover. But even with COVID, it's been an example that some outlying hospitals who in the past would have transferred those patients to New Hanover, we've had beds available at Brunswick and been able to take care of those patients at Brunswick Medical Center, or even do some surgeries here, especially with the waves of COVID that we've hit with high census and holding admissions in our EDs, et cetera. So we're really clinical presence, it's over 300 providers in our area, and we still in this area have a lot of independent providers, which we're very thankful for to serve our communities as well. Lori, anything you would add?
Yeah, no, I think our physical footprint goes all the way down to the South Carolina line, up to Jacksonville and out west to Columbus. But as Shelburne said, we're seeing patients come across even the South Carolina line and beyond to Brunswick and even to Novant Health, New Hanover Regional Medical Center for that tertiary level care. So it continues to expand.
And so Lori, since we're talking about the coastal market now anyway, I want to point out you have additional responsibilities, I guess, under your umbrella now. So essentially you took Shelburne's position out in Brunswick when Shelburne moved over here across county lines into New Hanover. But it sounds like you also have coastal market responsibilities. Is that fair to say, or is that correct to say?
Yes. So yes, we did do a swap. And as Shelburne took his not only presidency of New Hanover Regional Medical Center, but the coastal market, what I took in addition to being the president of Brunswick Medical Center was some regional responsibilities for a lot of our ancillary and support services. So things like radiology services, pharmacy services, laboratory, and then also some of our what we historically called service lines, but Novant Health brands as institutes for oncology and neurosciences. And so the goal is really to make sure those are standardized across the whole coastal market, and to make sure we have one unified strategy.
Yeah, I was curious about asking that because you said neurosciences as an example. What are some of the service lines or institutes that either have expanded in the past year, or there are concrete plans to expand, patient care in certain areas?
Well, I'll start with my two, and then Shelburne can fill in. So neurosciences, Vicki, I think we've covered this in the past, but the new tower that was built on the 17th Street campus has had many iterations over its life. If you remember, it was damaged in Hurricane Florence, and that construction was delayed about a year. And so during that time, we were able to sort of reimagine that as the plans for Scotts Hill came into focus. And so that is going to be rebranded and refocused as a neuroscience center. And that is planned. So the building was, what we're doing is 4 ORs that are dedicated to neuroscience, 2 interventional suites, and then it's a 108-bed tower that is also going to be inclusive of neurocritical care, which will be a new service for ours just because of the increasing patient population we're seeing who are afflicted with neuroscience type illnesses such as MS, aneurysms, strokes, et cetera. And so we are very excited about the opening of that coming up in this. So hopefully we'll have more information about dedication, groundbreaking, and opening of that, but look forward to that in September of this year. And I'll also touch briefly on oncology services. We are looking to expand. This past 2 years ago, we expanded into Brunswick Forest location for additional medical oncology services. As part of the Scotts Hill campus, we are also looking to expand services there to have additional oncology services. It's one of our fastest growing patient populations and really want to increase that access to care. So that is part of our planning right now to be hopefully opened at least at the time of the Scotts Hill campus opening at the end of 24, beginning of 25.
And so those two that you just mentioned are major new capital projects that were in the plans for the hospital. And part of this deal, when I say $5 billion, is that $3 billion commitment to capital projects over the next decade, 2.5 billion of it in terms of new building or facilities. Tell me if I'm describing this wrong. But with these major projects you're talking about now, I mean, can we expect to continue to see like that level of construction and new projects, or, you know, is this year like a bulk of the investments for a while?
Well, it'll be a lot of new construction. I mean, Scotts Hill, and Lori mentioned, that's a $214 million investment in a hospital and a medical office building. And in that area up there is just really, really growing fast. So we're hoping for an opening of that in 2024. We also have a new medical office building that will be going up on the campus of Brunswick Medical Center soon. Just because their existing medical office building, they're out of space and they're recruiting providers and need more space there. So we're excited to be breaking ground, I think later this month, right, Lori, on that building. And even continuing around, we spend a lot of time with our teams looking, where do we have services? Where are the gaps in services? And one area is the Michael Jordan clinics that everyone's heard about. The Michael Jordan family had donated $10 million so that we could build 2 clinics in Wilmington to where there's a need for healthcare in some underserved and marginalized communities. So planning for those, and hopefully construction will start soon to get those 2 new clinics open to serve those communities as well. So there's a lot on our list. We're also working on a master facility plan for the entire market. Where are there gaps? Where are we out of space? What could we do differently? What could look different? How do we offer those services? How do we expand some specialty clinics for the region? Because between Brunswick and New Hanover County, it's fast growing and people just keep moving here and moving here. So we're going to have to continue that physician recruitment and being able to provide those services in those communities. So we'll have lots more projects coming up on the horizon.
Okay, and since we were talking about Scotts Hill anyway, in that part of northern New Hanover, southern Pender, let's talk a little bit about Pender Memorial Hospital, now Pender Medical Center. So in the agreement, that has always historically operated as a lease agreement ever since NHRMC took over managing Pender, but is a lease agreement. So in the purchase agreement, it was stated that can't change unless the local trustees that was created, the local board of trustees agrees to it. So I'm just checking in the past year. Has there been any discussion about changing the future arrangement with Pender Medical Center, either in terms of not renewing the lease, or I guess on the flip side, has there been any discussion of Novant being interested in taking over ownership of Pender?
No, we haven't had any. We had some internal discussions because that lease has another year, 18 months on it. We haven't had any formal discussions with the Pender County Commissioners, but I'm sure those will be coming up in the future. Pender, that community needs that healthcare there, and we're happy to help support and provide Pender. And the legacy New Hanover has a long history of doing that for the folks in Pender County. So it's a great asset to us.
And then another area or unit that had to be integrated is the physician groups, which had grown quite sizable in the past decade for NHRMC, and also in Brunswick County, Novant Health really added to its physician group numbers down there as well. So is that now integrated into one singular physician group, and has that grown in the past year?
It has grown. We were able to recruit last year alone 49 new providers for the coastal market. We did integrate the New Hanover Medical Group into Novant Health Medical Group. And so they're all branded Novant Health, but they still function a little separate from Brunswick and from New Hanover. So that's going to be a work in progress. And we don't want to rush that because we really want to, as I said earlier, look at where we can offer specialists to come down to Brunswick or have clinics or some satellite clinics and really build that culture of alignment and work together. So it's going to take us a little time to fully integrate all of that.
We've had some great examples already, Vicki, I think, of our specialists working closely together and trying to increase that access. Particularly in Brunswick County, we've had our Novant Health Cancer Institute open a gynecologic oncology services at Carolina Shores to try to bring some of those services down closer to the patients in southern Brunswick County. And then also our Brunswick urologists expanded services in the legacy NHRMC Brunswick Forest location, and we're able to start doing procedures and fill a gap in there for urology services. So we've already seen some great wins with that integration.
So you mentioned some the growth in terms of the physician recruitment. Overall, in the past year since the integration started, how has the overall employment base grown? Like, have you done additional hiring in other areas, or has it stayed pretty much similar levels, but you expect to grow in the future?
It's been where we expected to, but I mean, we're always recruiting. I think everyone hears around staffing shortages in healthcare. That with COVID, there were a lot of healthcare workers that decided to retire and leave healthcare or choose other fields. So we're all competing for the same pool of talent. And we've had conversations with local community colleges and UNCW about how we expand the workforce, how do we increase their classroom size. And we're working really well together about how do we even get into the middle schools and high schools to sort of get folks headed towards healthcare as a career down the road, to have that pipeline going. But it has caused some staffing shortages all across the United States, and all hospitals, and travelers have become a big thing in our facilities, nurses and respiratory therapists and others traveling. So COVID has really taken a hit on the workforce.
Yeah, I definitely, before we get off today, definitely want to mention some of the other COVID impacts that you guys are seeing, particularly with the latest surge. But before we get into that, another area I was kind of curious about was how EMS services work now after the integration time. I assume it's still functioning the same as it was in New Hanover County. Was there any extension of it, services into Brunswick County now? I know, Shelburne, you and I have talked in the past about the deal previously, with Vitalink and using the helicopter at the New Hanover Hospital. So just curious if any more examples of extended services like that went into Brunswick County.
Yeah, I'm gonna let Lori take that one. She did get them down in Brunswick.
Yes, so we were able to partner with Vitalink to provide non-acute ground transport. That's been a challenge just in our region, with some providers no longer offering services. So they were able to support us with that. In addition, we're also extending to have a permanent ground transport on site. The truck has been purchased and is being wrapped in aubergine as we speak. And we hope to have that on site, hopefully in the April timeframe, as soon as that's finished. That will allow us a couple things. One, on site, obviously be able to move patients more quickly. And then in the event we have a serious situation, but the helicopter can't fly, we'll already have that ground transport on site to be able to take that patient directly to Novant Health NHRMC. So we're very excited about that service to have it on site.
Really,
Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead, Joel.
and for the EMS in New Hanover County, they're really just operations as normal. We're trying to keep up with the growth and the demand, and we've had to replace a couple of vehicles already due to age and those type things, but they're still taking care of the community members here.
They've also I know we haven't gotten into the COVID, and we can talk a little bit more of that when we get there, but that team has also really jumped in on some things related to COVID that we can talk about when we get to that subject.
And then another major aspect of the bid from Novant and the deal was having an academic partnership tie-in. UNC had already had a long presence at NHRMC, and as part of their bid that they put together was an agreement to not only continue that role of training UNC students here in Wilmington, but actually expanding that training and that program. Let me see, in terms of the actual pledged commitments was Novant would spend $30 million a year to expand the graduate medical education program here. Looks like that ramps up, year one of like 17.5 million and goes up from there to that figure. So assuming that, they've already invested in that year one expansion, can you fill us in a little bit about what happened this first year with the UNC partnership? And then, are there plans for in the second year to expand that more, and in what ways?
Yeah, so the primary goal was to increase the number of residents that we have in the market going forward, because they're obviously hopefully going to be our pipeline of providers to keep local. So we did expand this year, and we'll continue that as we move along. But another piece of that partnership is really around bringing in pediatric specialty services and more of them to New Hanover County, because we've had a few in the past. But still there are other specialties where families have had to travel to UNC or Duke inland, and we would like to grow that here with our Women and Children's Hospital. So we're working on a lot of stuff right now, and we've recruited a pediatric cardiologist already to the market. So there'll be more that we can join you in the future and talk about how we've expanded those services. And on the campus, part of the capital project was we renovated and built a new library for the residency program, and they just have moved into that space. And it's a really, really nice space for those residents to do a lot of their research and work, and even have a respite room in there where they can go and sit in the massage chair and sort of recharge.
I need one of those, I think. Did the actual class size expand this year, or is it growing in terms of number of students already?
It'd be growing in this coming class size year.
And then also, I guess maybe tied in with that in terms of working with UNC, another pledge was to increase or expand the infrastructure for clinical research. Have they started working in that areas yet?
Yeah, they're working closely with UNC about how we work on that. I don't have any specifics I can share today, but lots of discussions going on in specific areas around that way, especially with our institute structure that we're bringing into the coastal market now.
Okay, and taking a step back, when we talk about all these individual things that were pledged in the agreement, or spending levels and all that, I know it was mentioned one of the requirements is an annual report out about, some of these commitments. I'm just kind of curious in terms of like, who does that report go to, and has it already been compiled for the first year yet? What does that look like?
Well, we released our first year annual report that talks about some of the commitments. It's not just focused on the commitments, but just some of the highlights that we've talked about today of what we've seen accomplished. I know it went to our team members. I'm not sure who our marketing PR sent it to outside.
Does it have to go to, just from a regulatory standpoint in terms of looking at the agreement and those commitments, does it have to go to the Attorney General's office or the county who is on the other side of the contract, or does it fall under the board, the trustees, basically to see the agreement commitments?
No, I really don't know off the top of my head. I know we've shared it with our board of trustees, but we'll have to get our marketing department to close that loop with you, Vicki.
Okay, you guys could just give it to me if you want me to check in every year to make sure that the purchase agreement is moving forward.
Make sure you have it.
We'll come see you every February.
And then when we speak of, the I guess new way of looking at the healthcare system here in this first year, I'm also curious, did Novant Health on the corporate end, do they now have a presence here that they didn't have before, either office personnel? I know some of the key figures like John Gizdick now has a corporate title. So do they have a corporate footprint here, and how big is that?
They do. They're actually going to be moving into their new corporate building next week. So John is a member of the executive team, as executive vice president of business development. So he's still in Wilmington. And so his office will be moving into that location, as well as some other corporate roles that some New Hanover team members are now part of a corporate role. And then also for our human resources department, we call them people and culture now. They opened up a service center down here, like a call center for all of Novant Health, and that's located here in Wilmington, and that opened up last year.
So before we run out of time, I do want to talk a little bit about COVID, continued COVID impacts, but just, to end us kind of on this discussion, and there's probably a million more details that we can go into, and we still will at a future date, but could you maybe both tell us, from your perspective, what do you think is the thing that has changed the most in the past year, but also what's the thing you think that hasn't changed at all, particularly from like the patient community standpoint?
I would say staffing has changed the most. As I said earlier, people have chosen to leave healthcare. COVID put a big strain on our healthcare system. It's very demanding work, and trying to fill that pipeline with that. And with this partnership, we were able to raise base salaries in the market for our team members. You know, in the past years, New Hanover budgeted roughly around 10 million a year for salary adjustments for team members. But last year alone, we spent over $36 million on salary adjustments and bonus programs for Legacy New Hanover and Pender team members to try to retain those folks. But you know, we've had the masking debate going back and forth, but our facilities and healthcare, we've maintained that. And just the different variants, it's all changed. This latest, well, Omicron has been, the people are not as sick, so we're not utilizing as many ICU beds, but we've still had high volumes needing to be admitted. It also impacted our workforce harder this go round with our team members contracting it. Not all related to at work. Some were out in social settings, but each wave has just been a little different. Lori, what would you add?
I would say, you know, having been a standalone facility, you know, for 50 plus years at NHRMC and being a part of that for a long time, we were it, right? If we didn't have something or couldn't get something, we're either calling the state or trying to work. And now we have a whole system behind us. So, you know, during COVID, we need to increase our ventilator support. We now have the system that sends us ventilators that day. We need to increase N95s. We've got a system support behind us that gets us our N95. So I think having that entire network and system behind us that we didn't have before, which I think was one of the main goals and part of the partnership and the need for the partnership, I think that has changed the most. And we were able to see that almost immediately. I think what didn't change is, I think, both historical Brunswick and New Hanover and Pender's dedication and partnership with the community. I think that has not changed at all. I think maybe it's only been enhanced, but I think presence and commitment to the community is the same, if not greater.
And you guys have both already mentioned some examples of this, but I'm curious, you know, we see what's happening in other parts of the nation in terms of this latest variant surge. What did you at both of your facilities experience in terms of just the latest surge with COVID-19? And, you know, 2 years in, have you learned, it's so hard to say this question, have you learned any lessons to help navigate this better? Because it changes, I know, every single time we have another variant come up. But how did it impact operations there at the hospitals and patient care?
Yeah, so we've at all of our facilities just seen record high numbers in our EDs, and not just COVID patients, but other patients as well. And we have had to you know, sort of slow down our ORs because we don't have capacity. The hospitals are full. We've all been holding admissions in our EDs over the last several months with this one. We are beginning to see the COVID numbers come down as far as hospitalizations. It's just dropped a little bit, not as much as we would like to see. But also each wave, the hospitalizations seem to be longer. It's taking a lot longer for people to recover from each variant that we've had. So we've seen our length of stay increase as well around that. Lori, what would you add?
No, I would say each wave is brought up. This one, I would say, are more patients, but not as severe. So it's just been the pure volume this time around and trying to manage that. And then, you know, this time last year, we were really focused on our team and vaccinations. Now that's shifted and we're really trying to provide the therapies to patients, monoclonal antibodies, you know, there's new oral therapies, but just we're at a different place with staffing and resources and space. And so each time there's been a little bit of a new challenge that our team has sort of had to be very nimble about and pull together and create plans to try to support the community. So each time is a lesson learned.
And I think, Vicki, a big important, when COVID first hit, we were all rallied by our communities. Everything had shut down and we had signs from community members. And I think it's important for our communities to really understand our team is exhausted. They have been going at this 24/7 for 2 years. And if you to find resiliency. It's our team members. They keep showing up every day, and just be mindful of that if they have to visit one of our facilities, and thank them for the hard work and the hours that they're putting in, because they really have been there to take care of our communities every day. And you can see the fatigue and exhaustion on their faces every day.
Do you see staffing and workforce being just an ongoing challenge as you continue to navigate this, or do you see there being long-term impacts on that?
It's going to be a challenge going forward. As I said earlier, we've got to work with the colleges and community colleges. How do we expand nursing programs, rad tech programs, surgical tech programs to create that pipeline? Because with the population growth, we're just going to keep expanding healthcare services in our region. And so we're going to need to continue to grow that workforce moving forward.
Okay, well, I know you're both very busy today, so I want to let you get going and back to your day job. But thank you very much for joining lunch hour with us on BizTalk this week. Like I mentioned earlier, lots more to discuss, and we can continue the conversation on March 3rd, actually, at the Wilmington Convention Center for our next quarterly power breakfast. The panel will be new leaders in town. Shelburne obviously is a veteran leader in our area, but a year into this new role as head of NHRMC. So he'll be joining us on the panel, and also joining him will be Jeff Burke, the new airport director at ILM, and William Buster, who is CEO and president of the new Hanover Community Endowment, which we referenced earlier, that received the bulk of the cash proceeds from the sale. So that should be a good talk, and you should get to know them a little bit better in terms of these new roles and responsibilities. So we look forward to seeing you there. You can find the information on WilmingtonPowerBreakfast.com. And you, of course, can catch up on all our other BizTalk podcasts and articles at WilmingtonBizTalk.com or your favorite podcast streaming platform. So thanks, everyone, for tuning in, and we'll see you here next Thursday.
Thanks, Vicki.
Bye.